introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver. Hello, everybody. It is Lee Milteer. Welcome to the Millionaire Smart Thought Leader interview. I'm very, very pleased to share with you our celebrity expert guest, whose name is Dave D. And Mr. Dave D and I ran the Peak Performers, which was a huge group for Glazer Kennedy a number of years ago. Now, we've been friends for over a decade. Now, we'll say that Dave is the real deal when it comes to serious advice about shifting your mindset and attitudes about what is possible in your sales. Now, let me tell you something about his background to show you how important this is. Now, Dave was a struggling mentalist, meaning mind reader and magician. And then he discovered the power of sales and marketing, and his business skyrocketed from 3 shows a month to 25 shows a month in less than 90 days. Now, other business owners took notice and started asking Dave for his advice because they knew he could make a more significant impact if they listened to him. So he realized that a new business was born. So he started a life as a coach, a consultant, and a speaker, and he is damn good at it. Now, Dave has shared the stage with many people in the industry. You'll know most of them, some Shark Tank people. He has been on stage with myself, Dan Kennedy, Brian Tracy, Emmett Smith, and other very famous around the world at very prestigious conferences. Now, he is the author of the book, Sales Stampede, which teaches business owners how to sell more of their products and services or get their very best prospects to schedule appointments through the art and science of virtual selling. Now, he lives with his wife and partner in Georgia. Hello, Dave. So great to see you.
Lee, it is so awesome to see you. I am so excited to be here. This is quite an honor.
Well, look, the honor's for me, darling. So I just told everybody how great you were, and we'd work together with Peak Performers. And if there was anybody on earth that really understood business owners the way that you do and about the sales, that they needed to listen to you. So folks, again, this is a Sales Stampede by Dave D. You need to buy this book. It is fantastic. I just finished it this morning. And so I have a few questions for you. Since you and I worked together for such a long time with Peak Performers, one of the things we both realized was the lack of confidence that business owners actually have about sales. And I want you to talk about that because no matter how great they are with their technical stuff, all of that, the way they feel about sales bleeds on to their people. So let's really get deep into that.
Yeah, it's such an important topic. I mean, and we'll talk tactics and things like that during our time together, but this is really the most important topic. And Lee, the reason it is simply because if the salesperson or the business owner, they don't like to consider themselves salespeople, so we need to address that too. If they're not confident in their ability to sell, or they don't like selling, it is going to dramatically impact how many people they can impact with their product or with their service or whatever it is. And I think that one of the major reasons people say that they don't like selling is that they don't know what it is. They're thinking about selling in the completely wrong way. For example, they're thinking that selling is about manipulation, or selling is about getting someone to do something that they don't want to do. And that is not selling. That is not what professional selling is. Or they're thinking that I got to use these sales tactics that were being taught in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and the 50s and the 40s. Basically, by the way, the same strategies were being taught. Nothing has changed, and there's still people teaching that hardcore closer type of thing. But that's not what professional selling is. Professional selling is actually about helping people, right? It's about helping them get the outcome that they desire. It's about finding out what people want and then coming up with a solution and then presenting that solution to them in a way that makes it easy for them to say yes.
This is so important, Dave, because again, if the leader, the owner of the company, isn't also paying attention to how all of their staff is feeling. So just talk briefly about how important it is to train the person answering the phone and scripts and things like that, because this is something that just it disappears in their mindset.
Well, I mean, and going back to their own personal mindset, the mindset of the business owner directly impacts the mindset of the staff person, right? Of the team. So if you hate selling and you project that you hate selling and you think selling is sleazy, then that's going to come across with your team. So, but the sale really starts, professional selling really starts long before you actually meet with the prospect, whether you're selling in a one-to-one scenario or a one-to-many scenario. So if someone is calling your office, right, the sales actually starts there. How that person answers the phone has a dramatic impact on whether or not, first of all, you're going to get the appointment with the prospective client. And number two, whether you are going to, how that conversation is going to go. So everything needs to be scripted. And a lot of people really hate that idea about scripting a sales presentation or having scripts for the person who answers the phone. And they're thinking about it the wrong way, because they're thinking that a script actually makes someone, or makes it more restrictive, when it's actually the opposite. So there is a difference between a planned presentation and a canned presentation. Okay. So a canned presentation means that you're just going to run through your script and you're not going to listen to anything that the prospect says. You've got your script, and man, baby, you're going to go to the end until you get to the end, and then that's going to be it. That's a canned presentation. A planned presentation is, you know where you're going. So you've got a path that you're following. You've got some road marks along the way, and so you're following a structure, and that actually opens you up for more creativity. Now, I'm not sure you necessarily want the person who's answering the phone to get creative. You probably don't, but for yourself, you want to get creative. This allows you to actually be present with the prospect. And this doesn't matter whether you're selling or whether whether someone's answering the phone. The number one key to closing sales is being present with the prospect. And the late Stephen Covey once said, and it's so profound, he said, listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to reply. And if you have a planned presentation, if you've got a script, you know where you're going, you don't have to be thinking about, oh, here's how I'm going to reply to the prospect, right? Because you know where you're going. And so you could actually be present with them and listen to them. And because really, Lee, selling is about relationships. And in any relationship, presence is one of the key things, right? You've probably had you've had this feeling with your spouse or your significant other, where you're in the same room and maybe your spouse, or maybe it's you, is on the phone and you're trying to talk. Well, they're there, but they're not being present with you. And how does that make you feel? So really, selling is about developing a relationship with the prospect to turn them into a client. And so being present, having that script, knowing where you're going, have a planned presentation, changes everything for you.
I had a client who had been a personal coaching client, and this is a very, very successful woman. She literally has an international business. And so we're talking, and she actually said to me, I'm a terrible salesperson. I'm terrified of sales. I have no confidence. And how do I fix that?
Mm.
And of course, I'm like sort of pulling my hair out, like, we've gone this far and you're now just realizing this. But with that said, how can she fix it?
Sure. And I think a lot of people feel that way. So I deal with a lot of people who sell professional services and they have degrees. But I've also worked with a lot of people who are more in the creative space, right? And those type of folks do struggle with it. And again, so let's go through what selling actually is. Okay, I gave you the overview of what it was, which is helping people. But so here's the question I want all of your viewers and all of your listeners to answer. I want you to answer these questions. Okay. Number one, do you offer a quality product or service? So seriously, actually answer this question. Do you offer a quality product or service? So my guess is, Lee, that most people are answering yes to that fundamental question. Now, if they're not, and they don't have 100% belief in that, then that's a whole different issue, right? That's a whole different issue. We can't get past that with where we're going. But let's assume that everybody is saying yes. Okay. So you offer a quality product or service. Next thing, do you have a mission, and are you positive, and are you committed to being the best person to provide that solution to someone who really needs it? So whatever product or service that you're selling, someone has got some type of need, some type of outcome that they're looking for. Are you committed to making sure that they have the best experience and they get the results that that you can humanly possibly help them get, right? So for an example, I work with a lot of financial advisors. They can't guarantee that they're going to get the person, a 15% return on their money. But they can guarantee that they're going to do their very best, and that they're going to work harder, and that they're going to give better service than anyone else. So is that you? How would you answer that question? So yes. Okay. And then do you believe that your product or service, if you've got the right person in front of them, will actually help them get the outcome that they desire? Whether that's to solve a problem, whether that's to beautify their home, beautify their life, reduce their stress and make them feel better, whatever it is for you. Do you believe that the thing that you offer actually gets the result? Okay. So let's say that you answered yes, I offer a quality product or service. Number two, I'm the best person to deliver that product or service to my client. And number three, for the right person, right, my product or service will absolutely get them the result that they desire. Okay? So you answered yes to all of those questions. Then here's what I would say to you. I would say that you have an actual, not an obligation, you have a moral obligation to do everything you can within ethical bounds to close that sale. Because if you don't do it, you're actually doing your prospective client a disservice. Think about it. They've come to you, they're talking to you because they have a problem that they want solved, or there's an outcome, there's something that they desire that they want. You just told me that if that person, you could really help them. They're coming to you for help. And so you say, right? So I get fired up about this, Lee, because it's true. And so now you're telling me, oh, because that I don't want to help this person. That's what you're saying when you say, oh, I don't like selling. Because that's what professional selling is. It's not about convincing someone to do something that they don't want to do. One of my favorite sayings, Lee, is this. And I actually think very few things that I've come up with on my own, right? Because it's all derivative. But one of the things that I love to say is the difference between manipulation and persuasion is intent. The difference between manipulation and persuasion is intent. If your intent is to sell someone your product or your service, and you know that is not the right thing for them, then you're a con person, you're a con man, right? That's manipulation. If you've got the right person in front of you and your intent is to help them make the decision that's best for them, then that's persuasion. And I think that people who say that they don't like selling or they're terrified of selling think that they are in the manipulation game, when in fact, they're really in the persuasion game and helping people see that they do have the best solution that can get them the result. And if they just change their mindset to, man, I'm really helping this person and I'm actually doing them a disservice. I'm doing them a disservice if I don't close the sale. That changes everything. I remember a lot of people might not know this, but I used to be a professional magician. That's what I used to do for a living about 30 years ago. And I remember getting on the phone and talking to prospects and literally having the energy of thinking, if you don't, now obviously I didn't say this, right? But this was the energy. If you don't hire me, you are making the biggest mistake for your event on the planet. Because I know you just told me what you want to have accomplished. I know I can deliver that result to you. And by the way, just having that energy and that belief and that confidence, not in your selling, but in yourself and thinking about selling that way is really absolutely a game changer.
So for all the business owners, who is everybody here, this month's issue with the sales, you really should have a business meeting with all your staff and play this, because it's much better if Dave tells your staff that, how important this is versus you telling them. So I'm going to really ask you to do that, because if your staff is not on board, they're seeing snide comments to people. We've all been to some place that some, unhappy employee said, well, you should go down the street. It's cheaper and better and faster, and things like that. And you never know when you have those people in your organizations. And that's why mystery shopping would be another thing you should add to your list to make sure that everybody is definitely on page. Okay, so Dave, one of the I know there are a lot of mistakes that people make when they're selling, and one of them is that they don't have any confidence. And and you and I are big Think and Grow Rich devotees. And Napoleon Hill said that all brains were like batteries, and that what you're thinking actually is broadcast out on a subconscious level. And so if you're thinking negative things about your clients, customers, or patients, not only on some level are they picking it up, but your staff is picking it up, and they will mimic all of your bad habits. So what other big mistakes are people making?
Yeah, Lee, it's very interesting. Just exactly what you just said is so how I define sales energy, by the way, and I just opened it up so I make sure have my own definition correct, is the vibrational level you emit when selling to individuals or group of prospects. So what you just said is spot on. Absolutely, that comes through. So one of the biggest mistakes is not asking enough questions to find out what the prospect truly desires on an emotional level. And I'm going to give you the question. Okay, I'm going to give you one of the questions that you should ask. And I'm honestly, this one question is a game changer if you ask this question. But by asking questions to find out really what the prospect truly desires, because selling in great parts a transference of emotion. So how you feel, as you said, Lee, makes a dramatic impact. But selling is emotional. People are buying with emotion. And so we want to find out the emotional reason why someone is interested, someone wants to go ahead. And so one of the most important questions that you can ask your prospect, regardless of what you're selling, is, Mr. Prospect or Ms. Prospect, what is most important to you in blank? So, Mr. Prospect, Ms. Prospect, what's most important to you when you're thinking about getting an estate plan? Mr. Prospect, Ms. Prospect, what's most important to you about wanting to relieve your back pain? So let's just say someone's a chiropractor. Now, the obvious surface level answer is, so I feel better, right? But we want.
It's Lee Milteer, and I'm delighted to interrupt you today and let you know that I've been working with Stephen Oliver for 10 or 15 years now. He's a great guy. I love all the research that he does. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying the content on this podcast, then you really want to make time to visit advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do that? Well, because you're going to receive 2 of his great books, and actually one of mine called Success is an Inside Job. You'll also get a lot of absolutely free material on growing your practice through effective marketing. So again, take the time to go to advisorwealthmastery.com.
To go deeper than that. Well, why do you want to feel better? Well, man, I can't go out and play golf anymore. So playing golf is important to you. Yeah, playing golf is really important to me. What do you love most about golf? Well, I love going out there, getting out there in the fresh air, hanging out with my buddies and having fun and laughing. Okay. And so really what you're looking for is to be able to go out on the golf course so you can have fun, get that fresh air, so you can be out laughing with your buddies. And if you corrected your back pain, you'd be able to do that again. So that's really what you're looking for, right? Yes, that's really what I'm looking for. That's a whole different scenario than, oh, I've got a lower back pain. Okay, yeah, we can fix that. Right? Now we really know what the prospect's deepest desires are. And on top of that, Lee, I want everyone to understand this. When you ask that question and you dig deeper and deeper, notice I went down until I got the real emotional reason. Okay, the real emotional reason, and you'll know when you get it. When you ask that question, what does somebody need to do? Somebody needs to think in the future about what they really want. They may have not even thought about it on a deep level. And what happens when you start thinking about these things? Well, you start getting the feeling that they're happening in those positive emotions coming through. So then what happens? Well, now they're feeling positive. They're feeling good just by asking you questions. You're the person that's asking the questions. If you have developed rapport with them, they're going to link those feelings to you. So now, once you found out exactly what they desire, now it's up to you to develop a plan so that they can achieve what they desire. And if your entire presentation is around that now, so okay, we found out what they want. Now maybe there's 3 things. We find out the top 3 things that they want. Now, when we're presenting our product or service, here is the key, which leads to another mistake, is we just talk about our product or our service based upon the outcome or the results that the prospect wants. A mistake that almost everybody makes is that they oversell. They start talking about things that the prospect is not interested in. You may think it's a wonderful benefit, but if the prospect does not tell me explicitly that this is something that they're looking for, right, then I don't talk about it. I only talk about, for example, in our chiropractic example, okay, so Mr. Smith, here is why you need 1,400 treatments and you got to come in 12 times a week, right? The reason you got to do that is, right now, obviously I'm being facetious. The reason you've got to do that is because over time, what you're going to notice is that your back is going to start feeling better and better. You'll be able to swing the club a little bit better. Then you'll be able to play 3 holes. And then before you know it, by your last session, you'll be out on that golf course with your friends, breathing in that fresh air, laughing and playing golf without pain. That's why you need to do this, right? This is that plan that's going to help you get there. You see? Now, if I add in, also, by the way, you'll be able to play with your grandkids. Well, that may be a benefit to prospect B over here, but the guy might say, I don't like my grandkids. I hate when my grandkids come over. So basically, I'm giving crazy examples, but the point is that we oversell. We talk our way out of the sale, right? So just talk about your product or service. So this is all you're doing. Number 1 is you're developing rapport with your prospect. And we can talk about different ways to do that, Lee. Number 2 is you're finding out what the prospect truly desires on an emotional level. Number 3, we're presenting our product or service and showing the prospect how our product or service is the best way for them to get what they want. Then the 4th phase is we close the sale. But at this point, closing the sale, you don't need 401 closes. In fact, I can give everybody my close. Now, by the way, I'm closing sales on the phone or via Zoom anywhere in the $12,500 to the highest I've closed with a single call is a $50,000 sale. And so I'm selling some pretty high ticket stuff. So I'm going to give everybody what my favorite close is. Everyone's going to have to write this down, okay? Because this is a really tricky one, Lee. This is really complicated. If the prospect does not say to me, so how do we get started? And by the way, if you follow my process, and we don't have time to go over the entire process, but if you follow my process and you develop rapport and you find out what they want and everything that we talked about, typically the prospect says to me, how do we get started? I don't even close, literally. But here's my big close when I do need to close. Ready? Here it is. Everyone get your pen because you're not going to be able to memorize this one. Got it, Lee?
I got it.
So what do you think? That's my close. And it goes against every piece of sales training that's out there. Okay. Every professional sales trainer would tell you, you can't do that. Well, you most certainly can if the prospect knows you, likes you, trusts you, you've developed rapport with them, you've asked them questions, you've really listened to what they desire, and then you show them a plan that actually gets them the thing that they desire, and they believe it's the very, very best way to get them to get the outcome that they desire, and you've answered their questions or objections, then that's it. Either the prospect, then typically the prospect will say to me, well, how do we get started? Or they'll say, well, you know what? I've got one more question. Then it's closed. I'm telling you, that's what professional selling is. Now, obviously there's nuances and everything like that, but you don't need manipulative, tricky closes. You don't need them. You don't need them. And the truth is, the prospect today is far more sophisticated than they were 30, 40 years ago. And when you start using these heavy-handed techniques, which are obviously canned, right? First of all, they make you feel creepy. They make the prospect feel creepy. And it's just a lousy situation. But if you treat them like a human being and you take a consultative type approach, then closing the sale becomes really easy. The third, we're covering a lot of ground here, but this is a really super important one. The number one sales killer out of anything is being needy. Being needy. Neediness will kill more sales than anything else. So when the prospect smells that you need to make this sale, they're going to run for the hills. So you want to care for sure, but you don't want to care too much. Because now, hopefully, you've got your marketing in line, so you've got prospects, lined up, and so it doesn't really matter. You want to help this person, but if they don't want to be helped, okay, you got the next one in line. But neediness kills the sale. Any feeling of that tension or that needy energy kills the sale. The way you eliminate the neediness is, number one, by being in control, having a planned presentation. Number two, knowing that what you do has a positive impact on people's lives. Okay. And then number three, knowing that you have plenty of prospects. And then number four, knowing that, well, you know what? There's always a way. No matter what situation that you're in your business, there's always a way. There's always a solution. And you have the best coach on the planet in Lee to help you do this. Right? This is what she's a master at, is coming up with wild, like things that you would not think about, that I don't know where the hell they come from, Lee, right? But that causes a solution. I remember Walter Bergeron. You probably told this story, but you were doing a hot seat with him at a peak performers meeting, and you basically said the complete opposite of what he said he wanted, right? But it was the right answer. And so there's always a way. There's always a solution. And if you have that belief, then you're going to eliminate neediness from your market, from your selling.
You said so many wonderful things at the same time. I just want to touch on the fact about the neediness that, we credit dogs and horses for being able to pick up fear because it is said they can actually smell fear. I believe humans have exactly the same ability, whether it's on stage with somebody, and both of us have seen people who do great presentations, and when it comes to the sales, completely crash. Their whole body language change, their voice starts to tremble, they stop smiling, and then everybody's just, in agony as they're trying to go through the sales presentation. So my attitude for sales has always been, I am here to be of service, to match your needs with what I have to offer. If what I have to offer doesn't suit your needs, then I am happy to suggest someone else or another product or service. So when you have that being neutral, then people really appreciate that. But the first whiff of fear, you're dead. It's not going to happen.
You're so spot on, and you're really spot on about the transition from the content to the close, right? They tighten up. It's almost like a siren is going off, alerting the this person's about to do the sales pitch, right? It really is. Just a quick funny story about that for the former company that both you and I used to do some work for. So I would do the boot camps, which were 2-day training events. And so I did my presentation, I did my content, Lee. I'm going into the sale, like I'm going into the close, And I couldn't have been better timing. It was hilarious. All of a sudden, there's fire trucks, which are on the highway. Like, it couldn't have been any better because it was like, oh, hey, he's going into his clothes right here. But that's how it is for most people, because their energy changes so much when they move into the clothes. It's funny. So you need that transition. But I love the word that you used, which was the word neutral. And I know you've done this, and I've done it. I've done it with people who I've talked to. I've recommended somebody else, or I've talked them out of the sale. The problem is, if you get really good at this, right, and you're really developing rapport with people and you're really listening to, most people aren't being listened to, they're being talked at. So when you're really present with somebody and you're really listening, I'm telling you, this is one of the keys to selling. It's not a tactic. It's a principle. When you are really listening, people are going to open up to you because no one's listening to anybody.
Correct. So I like to tell people, stop being a salesperson, be a coach, be a counselor,
Yes.
because they come from a neutral position of wanting to be on your side and positioning for you. All right, I know we only have you a short time, so I got a few more questions.
Can I just give them one line, because I want to give one
Absolutely,
thing
yes.
Okay, because this is really important. So one of the things that I say when in a one-on-one consultation is, after we develop some rapport, I'll say to the prospect, you know what, Mr. Prospect, I'm not sure that I'm the right person for you or that I have the right solution for you. So let me ask you some questions to find out. And if not, there's very possible that I could recommend somebody else or another solution for you. By the way, that shows zero neediness, and it takes the prospect can relax into it. And so I say that every single time. I'm not sure I'm the right, because they're expecting a traditional sales presentation where you're convincing them that, oh yeah, I've got the best thing. Anyway.
Yes, and thank you for doing that. And that's why I have told everybody, if you ever want to learn sales from anybody, it should be Dave D, because he actually understands from a psychology perspective and an emotional and a human perspective about what sales is. And again, what you said earlier about this is really about relationships. You don't want to sell something to someone and run into a restaurant and then like avoid them because they're unhappy.
Right.
Okay, so
especially if you own the restaurant and it's not
exactly.
good, but yeah.
So the sales energy, which you touched on earlier, is there any more you want to add to the sales energy part?
Yeah, because I think this is, there's so much that we can talk about. We may have to do a part 2 where we get a little bit more tactical, although we are giving some really good tactics here. The other thing I think people need to understand is that they have a belief that a salesperson is a fast talker, okay, and is very outgoing and all of that. And I got to tell you, I have not found that to be the case at all. Now, that is my personality, but that's actually who I am as a human being. So there's different types of sales energy. And I actually read this. It was a great article. It's on socialpronow.com. If socialpronow.com/blog. And then if you just type in social energy, you'll see what it is. And what they did is they had a graph, and not a graph, they had a graphic, and it had 4 quadrants. And they had going across the bottom were positive sales energy or social energy, negative social energy. Then going up on the side is low energy and high energy. So in the top quadrant, they had a picture of Oprah. So Oprah has got high positive social energy, or what I call sales energy, right? That's who she is. Now, on the low energy, but still positive, they had a picture of Ryan Gosling from a certain role in which he was very, very powerful, but he wasn't smiling. He wasn't gregarious. He wasn't bubbly at all. He was the opposite of that, but it was still positive sales energy because it was controlled. Now, on the high negative energy, they had a picture of Steve Carell from the movie Anchorman, kind of that over the top, high energy, phony, right? And then on the bottom of the chart, they had low negative energy. So low energy and negative energy. And they had Kristen Stewart from Twilight. And so if you think about those characters, the point is you want to be yourself. And if you're selling one to many, so if you're on stage or you're doing a webinar and you're selling, what I like to tell people, Lee, is that to be an amplified version of yourself. Don't try to be like Lee Milteer. Don't try to be like Dave D or Tony Robbins. Be who you are. I think a reason a lot of people get all tense, especially when they're selling in front of a group or on a webinar or something like that, is that they're trying to be somebody who they're not. Be who you are. Just be an amplified version of yourself. You don't have to be hyper. Okay. You don't have to be, you just got to be who you are. You've got to be powerful, but you could be quiet and be powerful. So if you are more of a quiet, more intense person, be that. Okay. Be that, be who you are. So that is a real key. So again, where you're going to, let me just give some practical tips for, well, how do we get this energy? How do we actually get this energy up? Okay. So number one is to read testimonials and letters that you've received. Really read them and feel them. Next thing is recall specific clients who you have made a dramatic impact on. Now, we've all had clients where we've helped them, right? Hopefully we've had a lot of them, but there's certain clients, Lee, I'm sure you can think of ones that you've had a hugely transformational experience on them. So think about that, but more importantly than think about it is not here in your head, here, feel it, let it overwhelm you. Okay. And then the final thing is think about the wide ranging impact, positive impact, and the implications of what you do are. So oftentimes we're in business for so long that we forget about this stuff. But what is it that you really do? So if you're an estate planning attorney, as an example, yeah, okay, you're giving them estate planning documents, but what does that do? What is the wide ranging implications of that? That could have generational impact on people, generational impact. Whatever it is for you, think about, go beyond the surface level of what you do, or even one level, and think about the universal change that you're making with whatever it is that you're doing. And no matter what it is that you're doing, you're making that universal change, right? So if you're selling, let's say that you're selling a piece of art, right? Maybe that's what you're doing, right? Well, how does that impact people? What's the wide ranging implications of that? Well, number one, every time the person goes past it, they're going to feel wonderful. Their friends are going to comment on it. Well, that wonderful piece of art, if that piece of art's been in your home for a really long time, there's going to be an emotional attachment to that. That's going to go beyond that. So we've got a clock in our home here that came from my great-great-grandmother's house. And it was in my grandmother's house. And I remember it. And when I got that clock, I was so emotional because there was an attachment to it. That's what I'm talking about. Is this making sense, Lee? To really think about the impact that you're having. You do that, and you do that on a, by the way, you think about, you associate to what you do, you actually do for people on a daily basis. I guarantee you're going to close more sales without a single technique, just because of the energy that you're emitting.
That's so true, Dave, because I think we're looking for authentic and genuine and honest, high integrity people. And I don't mind saying that's kind of hard to find these days. Mm-hmm. And if you have those skills, now, I will say anytime some salesperson stands in front of me or sits in front of me and tells me how honest they are over and over again, I instantly think they're not honest. But I'm just saying that, we're not one-hit wonders. As Dave said, the sale starts with everything that you're doing, your website, the way your phone is being answered, the energy of the people who are working for you, the way that you actually respond to them. So it's all this encompassing thing. I wrote a book called Spiritual Power Tools for Successful Selling. And I actually encourage people to realize that this is your service on earth. is to help other people, and that it will be through your products, your services, the things that you do. And so the more that you are 100% enthusiastic and passionate about it, people will feel that, as Dave has said. So before we leave, Dave, I know that you have this very famous product called psychic selling, which is phenomenal. And I would like for you to tell people about what is psychic selling.
Yeah, so psychic selling, the way I define it, is ethically reading and controlling your prospect's mind, with a key word there on ethically. So we've touched upon a lot of the principles here today, but let me just give everyone the basic structure of it so they get some real value from this. So the first thing that you want to think about it in 4 phases. The first phase is what I call the meet phase, when you're meeting with the prospect for the very first time via Zoom, in person, over the phone. It doesn't make any difference. The first thing that you need to do is to develop rapport with the prospect, right? You develop rapport. Now, we don't have time to get into the strategies for doing that, but really one of the key strategies is listening, as we talked about, asking questions. Okay, so develop rapport. The second thing that you want to do is after you develop rapport in the meet phase, then you want to go into what I call the discovery phase. This is where you're going to ask your questions to find out what the prospect truly desires, right? And this is where you go deep, and we discuss that. And we ask the questions, and we go deeper and deeper until we really figure out what the prospect really wants and decide whether or not we can get them the result that they desire. If we can't, then we need to reframe what we're doing, right? Or reframe their thinking. So if the prospect says, well, I want you to guarantee me a 25% return on my money every single month, every single year, and you're a financial advisor, it's probably not somebody you're going to want to work with, or you're going to have to reframe what they're thinking. The next piece is, so by the way, psychic selling doesn't have anything to do with crystal balls or anything like that. It has to do with getting inside your prospect's head and your own head. So we've talked a lot about inside our own head in this conversation. Maybe in another one, we can talk about getting inside their head. And then once you found that, the next phase is the prescription phase. And it's during the prescription phase that you're going to show them the solution that you have that's going to help them get the outcome that they desire. It's where you're going to answer some of their objections. Although the truth is, you want to answer most of the objections in advance before they actually ask the objection. That's what a pro does. And in one-to-many selling, it's really important that you answer the questions during the context of the presentation. And so I've got some really cool ways to do it where the psychic part comes in. So one of them is subliminal. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So if I'm doing a one-to-many sales presentation and I'm selling a high ticket thing, I know that when I get to the close, there's going to be some people in my audience that are going to think, I really want that, but I cannot afford it. Okay. Now, there's a number of ways to address that. One, I could address it directly, which in my estimation is the weakest way, right? So I could say, now I know some of you are thinking, man, I really want this, but I can't afford it. Well, let me tell you why you can't not afford it, right? You've heard people say that. That's okay. It's all right. But here's the way that I handle that objection. At the very beginning, when I'm telling my origin story, I talk about how I was sitting in an audience for the first time watching our friend Dan Kennedy on stage. And Dan, I knew I needed this product. I knew this product would change my life. I wanted this product, but when he told me the price, my immediate thought was, I can't afford it. But then I remembered something that Jim Rohn said. And Jim Rohn said to me, successful people invest in themselves and their education. Successful people invest in themselves and their education. And I knew that if I wanted to be successful, I needed to do what successful people did. So even though I didn't think I could afford it, I went ahead and I bought the product. Then I go on to tell about the transformation that I had. So what did I just do? I just planted a seed in everyone in the audience's mind, right? Now, if they don't have the objection that I want it, but I can't afford it, that seed doesn't sprout. But at the end, when I tell them the price, if they have the objection, God, I really want this, but I really can't afford it, guess what happens? That seed sprouts. And they remember my story. More importantly, they remember me talking about that Jim Rohn said something. And therefore, the objection is answered. So I've planted the answer in their mind before they even had the objection. And there's so many different ways to do it that way. And you see, the prospect doesn't even know that you've done anything, right? It's all so subtle. And by the way, I know I have empirical evidence that this works because every time, remember, Lee, when we used to go out to get on stages and be able to speak in front of like large groups of people? Remember that? That was used to be fun.
Yes, I miss that.
Yeah, me too. Every single time, every time someone, at least one person would come up to me, pull me aside and said, I just bought your program. I didn't think I could afford it, but then I remember that thing that Jim Rohn said. Okay, so it works. So answer objections during this phase, and then you go into the close. All right, and the close, as I mentioned, is not an event. It's the natural next thing that happens. So if you're feeling like the close is an event, then the stuff that you've done before it has not led smoothly enough into it because it's not an event. It's the next thing that happens, right? And there's transitions and things that make those smooth, but make going from, so that's basically my structure of psychic selling.
So I just want to remind everybody that what Dave is actually saying is as you create your sales presentation, because it is a presentation, you have to keep the end result, the close in mind, and that every single thing is seeded towards that. Now, Dave and I are both stage performers and we sell from the stage, and it is hard to sell from the stage. And most of you aren't going to have to go through that, but you do sell. By the way, we have two kinds of clients. We have inside clients and external clients. The internal clients are our own staff, our team. And that, by the way, you got to be selling them every single day about why they should be selling your products and services. And you can also remember that just because someone bought something doesn't mean that you don't have to keep selling them on why it's good for them. These are things that people tend to forget. So Dave, I would really love to have you come back and we go into some more details. And folks, I do want to remind you, Sales Stampede, how to sell more of your products and services in 75 minutes than you now are doing all year. This is not a thick book. I actually read this in several hours. Now, because I know Dave, it was fun to read his book, but I will tell you, the book has very, 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 very clear, specific, do this, do this, do this, do this, and it will increase. You can even use all of Dave's stuff when you're writing your copy. I actually made some notes, Dave, when I was reading your book on how I needed to change some of my landing page verbiage. And I've already sent it to my web guy to do that.
That's great.
So I really highly recommend you get the book. So tell everybody how they can find you, Dave, because hopefully one day we'll be on stage again.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be great. So to get the book, if they just go to davedbook.com, davedbook.com, I'll actually send them a copy. They just pay for the shipping and handling, or they can go on Amazon and buy it for like $20, whatever you choose. Right. And when you get the book, you'll also get, there's a video which goes into greater depth and things like that. And most importantly, they'll get on what I call my daily D-mail list. D-mail, get it, Lee? D.
I do.
D-mail. You got it? You don't need me to explain it? Okay. All right.
No.
A little bit tricky.
Explain to them.
Yeah. And so I send out a daily, what I call a D-mail, which is short, entertaining, and fun. And it has a business building. It's all around selling. Right? It's all around either one-to-many selling or one-to-one selling, but it actually makes learning how to sell fun. And so you'll also get that as well. And of course, you can unsubscribe whenever you want, but I don't think you'll want to.
No, I'm on that list and it's very, very good. And I personally, I was born a salesperson, but I learn from Dave every time he speaks. The tiniest little shining of your diamond can make such a big income pop in your bank account. So, Dave, thank you so much. It's always great to see you. And
awesome.
I just love you so much. So thank you very much. And we're going to get you back on very soon to go into some serious detail. Okay.
Thank you, Lee. This was absolutely outstanding. Now everybody go sell something, go help some people.
Yes. Go help people make their dreams come true. Thank you.